How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. You know,
Yeah.
trying to hang in there with everything.
Yeah. In light of the circumstances, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm in our studio space. Well, it's BJ Burton's spot, but
Oh,
we have a room in here. It used to be Humans Win like a number of years ago.
so it sounds like you're getting ready to release the first single pretty soon, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe to begin with, if you could just tell me a little bit about, how long has this project been brewing and when did you know that you wanted to kind of venture out on your own?
Yeah. This project started like right after we finished the Bambi record with my band Hippo Campus. Um, it I still had a lot of material that I wanted to work on like right after that record. Um, and the guys kind of weren't keen on immediately hopping in and writing another Hippo Campus record. So I had all this material and all these ideas. Um, and BJ and I had been talking about doing a solo record for a while. So we basically just made it in the gaps between those Bambi tours that were like insanely long. So I started it in the winter of 2018 and then finished it in kind of the fall of 2019.
Okay. Are you able to write when you're on tour?
Um, a little bit, not much. We tried the tour bus is a bit easier because we could put like a little makeshift studio set up in the back. Um, but it is pretty hard to write on tour. Mostly you're just trying to stay sane.
So then when you get home, do you kind of go into hibernation and start writing a lot?
Yeah, basically, I just have a need to work like all the time, just to keep myself again sane. But so yeah, pretty much every gap that I had at home, I was writing music.
Wow, cool. So did you have a vision in mind? Like to me, this sounds like a very natural progression from the last Hippo Campus record because the sound was already evolving towards this more like production heavy sound. But what was your kind of vision as you set out to write these new songs?
Beach and I talked a lot about like the idea of doing kind of like 80s music, but like with modern technology and kind of like modern sensibility. So kind of like make the records that they wanted to make in the 80s, but they didn't like quite have the technology for. We reference like Tears for Fears, like songs from Big Chair and like Prince's like Dirty Mind, and those were kind of the framework is doing the 80s, but sort of like in a more modern way, like with modern technology.
Interesting that you'd narrow in on Prince's Dirty Mind because I kind of hear a more like when he was doing the Camille album with the vocal manipulations and pitching his voice up and that kind of thing. I heard a little bit of that influence maybe.
Oh, cool. So yeah, there's definitely some Prince influence on this one, for sure.
So what made you want to play around with the sound of your voice in this way?
I think I've always like loved just manipulating my voice like as much as possible. I wanted to differentiate it from Hippo Campus as well. I think people have kind of heard my voice do a certain thing for a very long time. And that's kind of like I feel like that's a facet of what I can do, but there's a lot more that I can do with it. But like because of the genre of Hippo Campus, it made sense to, kind of keep it more true to what it was. In this record, yeah, we just wanted to experiment with like manipulating it and changing it and singing different styles and such.
I don't totally know a lot about what goes into production, and I know BJ Burton is really good at creating new sounds in the studio and that you definitely have formed this relationship with him that's very experimental. Can you talk a little bit about like what are you doing in the studio with him and how are you creating these songs?
Yeah, so a lot of these ideas started off like I would start the sessions and write the songs and have basically like a framework of the song, kind of like me and an instrument and some like rough drums and a bass that I'd bring BJ and kind of give it to him to mess with. And he would take it on his own and just kind of like destroy it or flip it or, manipulate it a bunch. So it's basically like me coming to him with like these songs that are a bit more like kind of classic and then him sort of like flipping them in this crazy way. And then as the process evolved, I would start giving him crazier and crazier ideas as I was able to learn and figure out kind of production. This whole record is like kind of my first go at like really like producing something. And I just learned as the process went on.
Yeah. And you have a few collaborators on the album as well. So I was wondering if you could talk about, who those people are and what role they played in the creation.
Yeah, I'll start out with JT Bates, who of Taylor Swift fame now. Played drums on a couple tracks. He played drums on the song Lazy. Then he did some drums on KO Kid as well. I think that was like the first session we had. Buddy Ross played on KO Kid and Harbor, and he's played with like Frank Ocean, and then Jimmy Stack is another producer. They're basically a lot of BJ's friends that were just like hanging out at the studio, and we are like, oh, like let's make something, or like hop on this track. And Jimmy's done stuff with like Caroline Polachek and like a gajillion other artists. Jimmy's great. So
Cool. Well, I'm curious what it's like to plan to put out new music in a pandemic in such an unusual time for the music industry. And here in Minneapolis, it's been just such a time of turmoil. I mean, how do you plan out releasing music, and what has that experience been like for you?
yeah, I mean, it feels strange. I think like I've been sitting on this record so long, so it just makes sense to me to put it out now. Like honestly, it feels really weird to be releasing music right now. But I feel like at the same time, people are really paying attention to like albums because they have a chance to sit and listen to them at this point, which I think is good. But yeah, I don't know. This is such uncharted territory. I'm still figuring out exactly like what it means to be an artist in all of this, or what matters in all of this. I don't have many answers for that. I guess we'll see how it shakes down. I hope that people like finally have time to be able to like dive into something, like dive into a record, and I hope it can provide people like some sort of escape. Yeah, it's crazy times right now.
Yeah. How are you doing? How is this how long has it been now? I guess 4.5 months since we went into quarantine, almost 5 months now. How's it been going for you?
It's been good. I've just been like working a lot. So we were in the studio with Hippo Campus, like working on a bunch of music, and we basically are finishing that up. And then I started producing a project. So yeah, I've just been like busy, kind of like working my way to sanity per usual. But yeah,
And living in the Twin Cities?
yeah, I live in Northeast Minneapolis.
Okay. And then what was the experience like for you through the unrest? And I mean, it's just been such a heavy time for so many of us, and thinking about, as you mentioned, even the roles that we play in the world and what we should be doing or saying. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think all the unrest, as insane as it was, seeing the way that it brought the community together was really powerful. Like driving around and seeing people, pick up trash or going to protests and screaming with, a bunch of people in Minneapolis. It as awful as what happened was, like it really brought our community together and kind of helped us prioritize the right things.
Yeah. One thing I've been thinking about a lot is that because there aren't concerts right now, the music industry is in this kind of bizarre frozen state. It's really an opportunity to, I guess, rethink things and figure out, what we would like to see different when things do start to open up again. Have you had any time to reflect on, maybe changes you'd like to see made in the industry, or changes you'd like to make with the way that you approach your work or your art? As you mentioned, leading up to this moment, you're just so busy touring nonstop and creating nonstop.
Yeah. No, I have asked myself those questions a lot, and I think like from a personal perspective, like what I can do to help is kind of use my platform to uplift artists who are marginalized, typically like queer artists, the artists of color, women, helping those artists, whether it be posting about them, or like as a producer, I have power to be able to like produce artists and help those artists find their voice and get their music heard in the right way. So I've committed to doing that in the future. As far as like our industry, I mean, we have a long way to go for sure, but I think we need to continually uplift those artists and give artists who are marginalized platforms to be able to talk about it, because it's they should be able to lead this discussion. It's our I said this I think in an interview with you a while ago, but like as a white male artist, I feel like it's our time to listen and figure out what we can do and uplift those who've been marginalized.
Well, I'm excited about the idea of you producing other artists. I'm curious how that will play out. Is there anything that you can share about things that you have already worked on or people that you're keeping tabs on?
Yeah, so me, my friend Caleb, and Nathan from Hippo Campus have like a band called Baby Boys that we do, and then we take on production projects. So we worked with this band Greeting Committee probably like a year ago and worked with them, and then we produced a record for Samia. Do you know that artist Samia out of New York? She's on Grand Jury as well, but we just produced a record for her, and it's so gorgeous and amazing. We were working with this band from Minneapolis, Milo. We worked on some of their stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and they're great. And then I've been working on music for this artist Rafaela recently. And then there's other like scattered projects, but
That's great.
yeah, I've been getting really into production. It's like weirdly more fulfilling than writing your own music is like, seeing somebody's vision come to light. It's a powerful thing.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want people to know about your new work as it's getting ready to come out? The record will be out in October, but we get a little first taste now with the song May. Anything else you want people to know as we look forward to the new release?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal record. It's like I was going through a lot. Like I went through a breakup at the time, which is like really intense. I had like the CT scan that like revealed like this crazy spot in my brain. So I like thought I was dying. It was like I was going through a lot of emotional turmoil during that time. So it's a very personal record. So I hope that people could, connect with it and feel the vulnerability in it and enjoy it.
Wow. What happened with your brain? What's going on?
Good question. Basically, I was like just sick a lot on the road. I was like sick all the time, and so I went to the doctor, and I was having all these crazy headaches. And they were like, we'll do a CT scan just to like kind of check out what's going on. They were like, it's probably nothing, and so I went in and got the CT scan. And I was like, it's probably gonna be fine. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, so I get like mad stressed out with health stuff. But I was at dinner with my family, and then the doctor called, and he's like, I don't want to like stress you out, but like we found like a spot in your brain, and we want to like kind of run some tests on it. And I was like, so what is it like? What? And he's like, I can't really tell you right now. Like we have to, go in for more tests. So I went in for more tests, and basically they confirmed that it was there, and they were like, it's either cancer, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's, or just like a blood vessel. And so I had to go through like a bunch more tests, and like for, this went on for like months. So I was like, again, like writing and touring during this whole period of time. And I was just in a really crazy state of mind. And eventually I like saw a neurologist, and he's like, I'm 98% sure that it's a blood vessel, and you just have to kind of keep getting it checked. But it is pretty crazy to, it puts life into perspective very quickly.
Wow. That's a really scary thing to go through.
Yeah, it was crazy. All the while, like touring and writing this record, it was really intense. But
wow. Well, I'm glad that you're okay.
Yes, yeah, me too. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is interesting context around the songs. Then I think people will probably hear a lot of that. This is just a time of uncertainty as well. So I definitely connected to it in that way, even, knowing that everything was recorded before this. But well, thank you for sharing what you've been going through.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. Happy to share it with, whoever.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're putting out music. I'm glad that you're producing artists. I'm excited to hear what else comes down the pike from you. I hope you can get some rest.
Yes. Eventually, one day.
With everything kind of on pause, maybe good time to take a beat. I'm trying to tell myself that as well. I just tend to work. But yeah, it's good to try to balance it out a little bit.
For sure, yeah.
Well, it was really good to see you. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll see you around, I guess, either on the internet or hopefully in real life sometime soon.
Definitely, yeah. Sounds great.
Okay. Take care.
Right. Yeah. See you later.
Bye.